In this video, we're going to be taking a look at the city of Troy, New York, as it relates to the architecture from the past. Some of it's still standing, some of it has been demolished. But as we zoom in, we can see Troy is not far from Albany, which has been covered on this channel. Troy also marking the end of the line for the Erie Canal. And I have done a video on the Erie Canal. I'll put the link to that in the description. Very interesting story behind that. Impossible build time in the early 1800s, and of course short-lived in its use due to the railroad, we're told. But if you look along this length, you're going to find many cities that relate back to what we would actually consider to be the old world. You've got Troy, you've got Syracuse here. Syracuse having their famous architect Archimedes Russell, which is an interesting sync-up with Archimedes of Syracuse of old. I think we're getting a lot of hints in the naming of some of these places and some of the stories that come out of these locations. You can see Rome here as well. We zoom in a little closer. Amsterdam. We've got a Rotterdam right here. So it's kind of interesting how you've got all these duplicates of the old world in what we're told is the new world, which is probably really the old world. And I'm just going to get this out of the way in the intro. We have a great fire in the city of Troy, New York, May 10th, 1862. Much of downtown Troy was destroyed by the worst fire the city has ever known. Sparks from a steam engine. You can see by nightfall, they say over 500 houses, stores, and businesses, and 75 acres were no more than smoking ruins. And we get the same story which repeats over and over when we look into these great fires. The miraculous rebuilding began almost immediately, and within 6 months, all of River Street had been rebuilt. Many of the new buildings were designed in the fashionable Italianate style with round arch doors and windows and heavy stone moldings. Classic false start narrative as far as I'm concerned. Interesting tie-in with the timeline on Troy as well is the American Civil War, which Troy was said to have been a large part of the manufacturing process. But they're giving us basically a false start date of 1862 for the city of Troy. We have an interesting photograph of Troy as well from that time, where they're telling us everything in the foreground here was basically burned, basically looking like a war zone. And you have, of course, the wonderful St. Joseph's Seminary, which we'll be taking a look at as we move forward here on the hill. I think we're looking at a lot of fakery, and we're looking at history that has been packaged for us to sell a particular set of events along a particular set of timelines. And I think there's much more to the story as usual. But let's get into the architecture. And we'll begin with the population demographics for Troy. You can see in the modern day we're at about 50,000 people. We turn the clocks back to the turn of the 20th century, 60,000 people, so a larger back then than it is in the modern day. And a pretty good size all throughout these late decades. Not huge by any means, though, compared to some of the larger cities we've covered here on this channel. And I do have quite a large file for you, so you find that interesting based on the size of the city itself. And I won't be getting into the canal all that much here in this video, but I did want to show you one of the shots that I found of a portion of the canal near Troy. You can see how massive the blockwork is here, the collapsing blockwork on the sides of the canal. Again, like I mentioned, an impossible architectural feat for the time. Very suspicious. We'll get into some of the architecture. I don't have a name for this building. I'm sure one of many that I either couldn't find or just don't have a name for. Interesting picture as well. You have these gentlemen doing some work here on the road. This is in the early 20th century, at a time when the motor cars had already taken hold, and you could see the way that the methods they use to do this type of work. We've got a wheelbarrow. These gentlemen are playing around with bricks in the street. So impossible feats is my suggestion. And some people don't like that. They say, oh, the people back then worked harder. They didn't have screens. They find all sorts of ways to justify the narrative that we've been given. And once you get to a certain point, it's easier just to scrap the narrative and question history. 1881, Troy. Here's a look at what Troy was said to have looked like when they had 60,000 people living there. And I'll just quickly share this. I did a little search using the AI engine Grok on X there, just to see what percentage of the population really would have been involved in construction during those years. And what got spit back out to me is, you see here, approximately 1.1% of the population in around 1880, and then that would jump to 1.3. Now this is taking into account agricultural areas too, where there's a lot of farming. So when you get to the city centers, that number goes up. But I did a search on that as well, and it doesn't go up much higher than 5%. So I guess we could say 5% of the total population engaged in the trades. So we're looking at probably a couple thousand people in a city like this at the time. 60,000 people involved in the work being done on a lot of these structures. And that's not just brickies. That's taking into account painters, plasterers, any sort of pipe work, early pipe work that's getting done, early electrical work. That's all the trades. Yeah, so when you start to crunch the numbers, it starts to become more and more ridiculous. So the deeper you go, right? And it all depends on what your comfort level is, on how deep you want to get into this stuff. We have some street scenes here of Troy with the streetcars, of course, the brick paved streets. Very intricate, actually, the streetcar lines here as well. And if you're not familiar with this narrative, the streetcars, the suggestion is a streetcar technology. It has been inherited from a civilization that existed, that has been obscured from our vision, our understanding. And these things did not just pop up miraculously through that very short industrial revolution period, but in fact it was all restarted again, discovered and restarted. All right, we have the Arboride steamer house, built 1875, demolished 1970s. There's a quick look at the steamer house, and again the technology, even at that time, the horse-drawn technology used for fighting fires. There's your steam-powered firefighting engine. The Armory in Troy, this one's said to have been built in 1918, which is quite late, but we get a lot of a hinge point with WW1 and a memory loss, I think, going on. And this is right in that time period. They built this castle, called it an armory. They built it in 1 year, we're told. Look how old the streets are compared to how new the building was said to have been at the time. And my videos are designed to get you thinking, not so much to give you answers, to tell you who was here before, or speculate on any of that. It's really just to question the narrative that we've been told about history, and maybe understand that there was once a lot more here, and it was a lot better than we're being told. The Caldwell, 1907, still stands, used as an apartment complex, it looks like. They have a nice modern rooftop construction up there. But you can see the lower windows here as well, the street levels, even a lower access. One thing that doesn't often get mentioned is excavation. The process of excavation was expedited tremendously in the 20th century with the advent of hydraulic, diesel-powered engines. Before that, some would have had steam shovels, but a lot of them are being depicted as shovel and elbow grease on horses to do a lot of these excavations. And many of these structures have basements and several basements in some cases. And you also get a lot of tunnels in many of the locations that I don't often touch on because there just isn't a lot of information on it. Many of the tunnels get attributed to the Underground Railroad or breweries or unfinished subways. But there's a whole world underneath our feet that we don't have an adequate explanation for. This is the Cannon building said to have been built in 1835, when there's about 15,000 people living there. They also say the mansard roof was added in 1870. I don't think any of this can be verified. And this one still stands. And looks like they are celebrating some of the older structures in Troy, New York. Of course, if you're from the area, feel free to put your 2 cents into the comment section below. Let me know what I missed or what might help add to the story. We also get a lot of soldiers and sailors monuments in these locations. What I think these are is a claiming of the old world for the new world inheritors. And this is one of the ways they put their flag down, with the soldiers and sailors monuments, or a modification of an older monument, or a fountain. I think it's all part of the process. And again, the street scenes. The street scenes are very helpful, I think, for us to visualize a bit of what these may have looked like. And I think for a lot of people it's difficult to visualize a reset because the cataclysm or series of cataclysms have been obscured from our understanding. I do believe there was a great cataclysm here and a series of cleanup operations and miniature cataclysms that go along with that. But of course, if you wanted to control our perception, you would hide that from our understanding of the past. And I believe that's exactly what's happened. But once you open up to that possibility, and if you get into the melted buildings, the damaged buildings, the type of damage that we're seeing in many of these cases, I think it unlocks a switch in our perception. And it becomes easier to understand how this may have all happened. We have a wonderful city hall, a one-year wonder, once again, miraculous builders of the 1800s. Destroyed by a major fire in 1938, this one. Let's take a closer look. And just to give you a sense of the quality of construction in the 1870s. Beautiful looking structure with the gates and what we'd call tech on top. Some sort of relationship with the ether of the atmosphere. The energy that this old world society ran on, we speculate. And really a concerted effort to destroy much of this before technology takes over and our ability to perceive a lot of this visually through mediums like TV, internet, even photographs. Basically was beyond the controlling powers ability where we are at this point in time. But so much of this was eliminated. And I've seen enough demolitions and fires to know that there's much more going on here than just random accident. This looks like a concerted effort to destroy the past, as far as I'm concerned. That's the same photograph we just saw in black and white. It's been colorized. Got some massive industrial buildings in Troy as well. This is the Cluett Peabody and Company's shop. I don't have a build date on this, but I do believe it reaches quite far back. Just a couple looks at it. This is give you a sense of how large this complex was. And another look, this is the building we were just looking at. You can see how many structures were adjacent to it, all supposedly part of this shirt factory. They did call it the Collar City, Troy. It's a large part of manufacturing shirts and collars in Troy, New York. Here we have the county jail, built in 1893, demolished in the 1990s. The Rensselaer County Courthouse, built in 1894 to 98. 4-year build time on this still stands. Take a closer look at that. And of course we know the date it was built because they slapped that on the front for all of us to see. In case you ever forgot or started to question it, it's put right in front of our faces. There it is in the modern day, still standing strong after 130 years. If we're to go by the story we're given. This is supposed to be a previous version of the courthouse in Troy. But of course it's a drawing, so really could be anything. Onto the crematory in the Oakwood Cemetery. The Earl Crematory, built in 1888 to 1889. 2 years to build this. Yeah, I know it's just a castle, right? They worked really hard. We can have a look at the detail involved here as we move forward. Just giving you a sense of the very, very ornate stonework on this structure and some of the interior for you. Like the polished marble columns and just the detail that is, everything is perfect. This is not, anyone who works in an industry that does this kind of work will tell you how amazing this is. If you can't already see it, go talk to somebody who does this kind of work. And of course they put gargoyles on it in the crematory, in the cemetery. Even the idea of having a crematory itself is highly suspect. It feels to me like a means of getting rid of evidence. We're looking at the Emma Willard School, said to have been built in 1910. Series of buildings, though. So again, it gets a little hazy, but I'll show you some of the structures that are a part of this complex. And you tell me if it makes sense that they were building like this in 1910 for a post-secondary institution. I just covered New Haven, Connecticut, and the buildings in the Yale University complex, and we see this everywhere. If you have any universities you think I should look at, point me in that direction, and I will definitely be happy to have a look. The Emma Willard School, this one. Again, take a look at the detail. Did they really need to put this in to that archway? Or were they just so good? These are questions you have to ask yourself if you're still on the fence and you haven't really asked the questions yet. I know many of you have, and you're right there with me. My videos are designed to celebrate the architecture, to catalog the architecture, and to maybe get you leaning in the direction of questioning the historical narrative. All a part of the Emma Willard School, looking very old, vine-covered. This is the Fifth Avenue Hotel. I wasn't 100% sure if this was Troy. Apologies if it's not. I know there was a Fifth Avenue Hotel in New York City as well. This one burned down. But I thought I would get these two stills for you. And anyone who knows, of course, can let me know if that was Troy, New York. But we'll keep moving forward and give you a sense of the brick structures involved with the fire station. No doubt they built all these after the 1862 fire to help fight any future fires. The First Presbyterian Church is here on the right with the columns. Said to have been built in 1826, and 1826 is less than 10,000 people living in Troy. So if we do the numbers on the construction percentage that we saw, 5%, let's give a generous 5% of the population, less than 10,000 people. So 100 people in town. And that's all trades. Remember, that would have existed at the time. Supposedly another First Presbyterian. Couldn't find anything else on that, but I'll throw it in there for you. The Freers Dry Goods building. 3-year build time on this. Everything arched, very high openings, multi-storied, no expense spared. Let's check out the interior of the Freers Dry Good building. And if you thought they had a plain stairwell in there, you better think again. Take a look at the detail on the railing here. I know it gets a bit blurry. You can see 2 figures up here. All of this detail, very difficult. Wrought iron, bronze wrought iron, all of these things. Unbelievable. And of course you're going to have a skylight in that open area for a dry goods store. The Freers Dry Goods Store. And there's a rendering of the city after the Great Fire. I will put the link to that article that I spoke about in the intro. It'll be in the description. You can check that out as well. These are just a couple shots of the fire. This is apparently the people that were going to fight the fire, but didn't do a good job of it. The W&L.E. Gurley building. large looking building, a bit grainy, but you can see as we get a little closer. They built this right after the fire, one of those miraculous rebuilds. This one took 8 months to build. Again, 8 months for this. One of many, by the way. They didn't just focus all of their attention on a structure like this. These were going up everywhere, all at the same time, and completed in this case, 8 months. So if I haven't given you enough ammunition to question the narrative, I don't know. I don't know what I can do for you. This one's built in 1856 in 1 year. It's another dry goods store, GVS Quackenbush. I don't know if it was demolished. I don't have that information, but there's a nice look at the mansard roof of the dry goods store. Eh? A Hart Memorial Library built in 1 year in 1897. Let's get through some of the visuals on this. There's a look at the interior. In 1 year, remember, they had enough time to put coffered ceilings and marble columns, wrought iron stairs, even just the designing and building of this curved piece of railing. Wrought iron railing, I assume, and marble steps themselves. You're trying to tell me that all that was done within a year. It's absolutely absurd. Even in our modern day, with all of our ability to communicate, with all of our technology and all of our ease of access of building materials, it's absolutely ridiculous. There's a nice look at the detail on this library. This is a nice looking building as well. It was originally a hospital, built in 1868 post-fire, we're told. Now part of the Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute, and they renamed it West Hall. And also was a Catholic high school for a while, as you can see there. There's a nice look at this amazing structure. All right, 1911, we have a high school. Couldn't find anything else on this one. Just a couple visuals. Does that still stand? Anybody know? Anybody from Troy? Would love to know. We're told that's an old high school. The Samaritan Hospital, built in 1898. Looking like a shadow of what it might have been. Looks like maybe there was a tower here at some point. And maybe this was taller as well. Just speculating, but I've seen it many times. This one's a bit curious as well. Samaritan Hospital, are these supposed to be all the patients or workers? And this would be the new high school. Often I wonder too, do they build upon the roots of old buildings when they do new builds? And there's that same building we saw with multiple uses. This is another hospital. I thought I'd put it in there. So real focus and attention on people's health, having all these hospitals, if you believe that story. I suspect there's much more going on there. The Ilium building, built in 1904. Beautiful curve on the corner. This one still stands, and it is still showing off a lot of old world beauty with its look at the cornice line along the roof here. It looks like we've got lions every several feet, everything arched, everything complicated. Yeah, there's a nice close-up of those lions. Very intricate and ornate brickwork. And sometimes I get pushed back to and say, well, we just brought immigrants over and they had the knowledge and skill because they were doing it over at home. And so they just built that way here as well. Population demographics don't add up when you look a little deeper into how cities in North America were growing so rapidly in the late 1800s. There should have been a dip in the population in many of the countries they were coming from. And if you look at those demographics, you'll find it's not the case. So there's something seriously wrong with the narrative. And you can see the designation here on this building. And the timeline here did not stand for all that long, really. So you're getting a lot of spot fires, I would call them, as well, especially in the 20s, 30s, sometimes stretching further on into the 20th century. Again, I suggest a systematic destruction process and erasing of the old world. One of my favorites in Troy, the Music Hall and Troy Savings Bank. You can see we were built in the early 1870s. Some pictures don't really show you this roof shape very well, because a lot of the pictures are taken from the road, as you can see here. So you almost wouldn't know that this had that kind of roof from many of the pictures. And the inside looks a bit sanitized, but still showing us the original shape. I suspect all the paintwork in here has been redone, that's for sure. Here's an old look at the interior, and even from that we can probably glean that much of this has been made plain, whereas in the past you can see a lot more detail going on here. Again, another sign that they've diminished these structures. So even if they do hold on to them, they do diminish them for us. They're nowhere near the splendor they originally had, which is the reverse of what you would expect. You think we'd be doing better if you're to believe what we're told. I'd like to take this moment to let everybody know that my 2026 Old World Exploration Calendar is now available. Link to that in the description as well. So if you're looking for maybe a gift or something like that, it features the visuals of 12 cities I've covered here on this channel. Picked out the highlights of the buildings, put them in a single visual. Shameless plug, I know. There you go. Ninth Presbyterian Church, built 1871, demolished in the 40s. Let's take a look at some of these structures in that Oakwood Cemetery. We saw the crematorium. And you're getting a lot of this type of architecture and design. Look at the detail involved here. Absolutely incredible. Beautiful stuff. Certainly worth a look. I have not delved deeply into these cemeteries and what may really be going on there, but I think we're looking at some sort of holdover from the old civilization as well. And I often wonder, do they hide access points to the underground? I think all options are on the table. Are they salvaging pieces of buildings that have been demolished and placing them here? These are all sort of questions that float around in my mind. But nonetheless, beautiful looking structures in these cemeteries. Even a colonnade with mausoleum type structure. And this is a bridge in the cemetery area as well. You can see the detail on there as well. This gentleman, John Krause, must have had a lot of money, and it must have been in deep with the gentlemen's clubs to have his name on this structure here. And we get to an ugly underbelly of the New World narrative. The orphans and the asylums used to house them. We have the Catholic Orphans Asylum, built in the 1860s, 2 years, destroyed by fire in 1974. Getting rid of the evidence. Why were there so many orphans? You have to ask the question. If it was such a sick society, people were getting sick and dying, war-torn, people were dying in wars, how were they so capable of building all of this infrastructure? So many questions arise. Troy, this is another one, 1877. Just to show you some of the architecture. Those orphans sure had a nice surrounding, maybe not so nice atmosphere, but some nice surroundings. How many of us are born of these orphans as well? Are we descended from these parentless children? The old post office in Troy, built 1890 to 94, 60,000 people there. They decided to build a 1, 2, 3, 4-story post office with a tower. Made of stone. Demolished in 1930. Had to get rid of it. And there's a nice shot again of the streets. The very, very worn looking brick paved streets. Very well established sidewalks. Of course, it has a basement as well. That's basically a castle used as a post office. Not the first I've seen. Demolished in 1930. Moving on to the Proctor's Theatre. 1914 took less than a year to build this. I think we could do it now in less than a year. With all this detail. Slapping a couple griffins onto the walls. Everything arched. Could we do it? Tradesmen out there? Could we do it? I don't think so. Take a look at the iconography up here. The detail. There's no square windows on this. Oh, I guess they are here, but I would suspect that this definitely looks like it's been remodeled, this section here. We'll keep moving. The Quant Brewery, just a quick look. No info on that. This is the approach to the Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute buildings, which is supposedly one of the oldest engineering institutions in the United States, coming out of the early 1800s. Which is interesting because civil engineering and engineering in general are such a large part of the what we look at here on this channel and seem to be unaccounted for. The Rensselaer Inn. Just a quick look at the interior on that one. And a nice black and white for you. Even just the shapes of the buildings themselves, how they flow with the streets. Part of a past we have no real understanding of. So Rensselaer Polytechnic, we're seeing all sorts of buildings associated with that. I call it the approach again, what I just showed you. It looks like the post office there in the foreground. And there's a nice look at some of the structures. There's the seminary I mentioned that became a part of the Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute. This one is featured in one of my old world buildings that have been demolished here in North America. I believe it's in my 3rd volume. Quite a prominent structure with those spires. Here's the Pittsburgh building. Said to have been built 09 to 1912. The Guard building. Couldn't find a lot on this one either. Quite a prominent structure as well, though. And another nice look at the Polytechnic buildings and seminary. Well established. Very well established. This is a nice one. I love these. I find these to be gems. This is the Rice building that was said to have been built in 1871. The top portion here, right to about this line, maybe this line, was destroyed in a fire in 1916, we're told. So they got rid of all of this amazing stuff, looking like we've got some crazy tech going on here on the spires. There's another look at it with the roof. And in the modern day, that's what's left. It's still celebrated as a beautiful old structure, but I would suspect probably a bit of a mystery that it ever had any of this going on top. And there it is with its very bare bones font to tell us the name of the building when compared with the quality of the architecture itself. Alright, the Seminary, Gurley, and Russell Sage Hall. The Russell Sage Hall said to have been built 07-09. Still stands. There it is in the modern day. Much to see, I think, in Troy, still, despite all the demolition that we have witnessed so far. And part of the front area of the Russell Sage Hall, that's the Willard, I believe, Emma Willard, statue of Emma Willard. Doesn't look like an Emma to me. Moving on, Sim Parsons building. I believe that's the same structure we saw earlier under a different... No, Sim Parsons is the jewelry store, sorry, up front. I'll keep moving. This is the St. Francis Church, built in 1863 and 1 year after the fire. Still stands. There's a look at it. St. John's Episcopal, 1853. They're just building churches. This one's got a stone spire, still stands. There's the quality of construction for 1853, when there was, 30,000 people living in Troy. building stone churches like this. There's the level of detail from 1853. It's got the little nodules on these, which many have speculated is a part of the tech distribution process of the old world. And we'll take a closer look now at the seminary building. 1858, said to have been built in 3 years, demolished in 1969. Finally, there it is on the hill. This is really the best one I could find of it on its own. I know it's a bit blurry. We just don't get a clear look at the detail on this building, and I wish we could. Interesting as well, looking very lonely up on the hill. That's about as clear as you're going to get for the detail on this one. Moving on and coming to the end of the file, the St. Mary's Church, 1899, one-year wonder. Stone, arches, and the St. Mary's ladies. I grew up Catholic, so easy to poke fun. And then they went and built the new St. Patrick's Roman Catholic Church in 1912 to 1915. At this point, they've gotten really good at building like this. There's your triple entry. I always wonder what's missing from the towers. This one is on the way out. It looks like this is the state of affairs for this church at this point in time. Either destined for a massive renovation or the wrecking ball. They do try to provide us with a construction photo of this church as well. Does that look anything like this? This is the St. Paul's Church, built in 1828 in 1 year. Look at it on the street in a modern day look. 1828. And the interior for you at St. Paul's. 1828, remember? St. Peter's Parish House, here on the corner. 1836, demolished fairly recently again. This is the Trojan Hooks at their headquarters in some sort of group or club. Anyone know any more about that? Comment section, please. The Union Station, built in 2 years, demolished in 1958. There's a bit of a two-phase to this one. They're saying this one was the one that was burnt in the fire. Maybe rebuilt, because this is 1869. There we go, yeah. Torn down in 1899 and replaced with this Union Station. I could do a whole video on Union Stations. Spectacular structures. I don't think the stories on those are any way accurate of how these things were built together, put together. Sorry. And of course, they tear this one down like so many that have been torn down. This is supposed to be a relic of the previous Union Station. And there it is, 1903, freshly built. They'll say at this time. The Union Station. Real tragedy that many of these no longer stand. And there they have, taking it to the wrecking ball. The United Shirt and Collar, another massive multi-storied red brick structure. And we come to the end, and as is so often the case, the YMCA. Alright. Thanks for joining me. This has been an old world exploration. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe, hit the thumbs up button, and comment. I believe we are in the process of remembering who we really are and casting off the shackles of illusion. Until next time.